Hey everybody, this is Patrick from Sasquatch in the Wild, and this is one of my favorite stories for 2016. Um, Mike had taken me out to this one location that has a lot of different campsites along this one road, and he chose this one for us to go down to. Now, um, we get to this spot. When we get there, there's two campsites. There's one by the road, or kind of sort of by the road, and one way back. And we could see the other campsite. And there was a guy there, and he was shooting clay pigeons and stuff. And eventually, while he was doing that, we were snacking on things, waiting for him to leave. And finally, he packs up his stuff and he leaves. We drive all the way back, and we set up Mike's tent. So, in the meantime, once we got that done, Mike was kind of like, hey, I have to go to the bathroom. I said, hey, go ahead. So, I'm still doing stuff. I'm still taking stuff inside his tent. I'm setting up my area. He goes out, and he goes down kind of by the trees. And he said, he was doing his business, and out of nowhere, he got rock clacked. And he was like, what? So he was like looking towards the trees, and he thought that was crazy. So he comes back about 15 minutes later, tells me about it, and he said, and do you have to go? And I said, yeah, where'd you go? So he told me, and I said, okay. So I grabbed my shovel, and my stomach's turning all over the place. So I go down, and I dig out my hole, and I'm going through the process, right? And I'm just kind of sitting there, and out of nowhere, I get bang, bang! I get two wood knocks right away, and I about lose my shorts, literally, because everything comes out of me that quick. And as I'm sitting there experiencing this heart attack, I realize that there's a structure to my right. And I was blown away, because here I get wood knocked, and I turn and I see a structure right there. So I was like, okay. So I get all cleaned up, and I was like, oh, that's it. I'm going to go into those woods. So I went into the woods for a little bit, looked at that structure a little bit, and was like, okay, I'm going to come back. So I turn around and I go back, and I'm telling Mike about it. I said, did you see the structure in the trees? He goes, no. I said, it's kind of like a teepee. It's a very basic teepee. And he goes, oh. So we went back down into that area, and we spotted the teepee. So he goes, this is going to be a good area. I said, you're right. Now, this video is a slideshow video, and I'm going to talk through it just like I did on the other videos. This face is going to go off, so you're not going to see like little clips here and there. You are actually going to see screenshots that are going to be, big on your phone, or big on tablet, or hopefully on your computer. And then I'm going to show you some pretty cool things. So I'm going to start that here in about 10 seconds. My name is Patrick. This is Sasquatch in the Wild. I hope you're enjoying this journey, because the slideshow begins right now. Okay, so this is Mike, and he's looking at the stars. And it's pretty pitch black there for the most part. The moon is coming up slowly, and it's going to be popping up behind some trees here shortly. But right now it's pretty dark in the sky. My car is right here, and one of the things that I like to do before I go camping is I give my car a really good car wash. And the reason behind that is that the car will actually be like a static charge to it. The minute I hit a dirt road, which is what we had to drive on, all the dust will collect on my car. And this is a good thing. I know you're thinking, how can that be a good thing? It's a good thing, trust me. Because when a Sasquatch will touch your car, or if it touches your car, it will leave fingerprints all over your car, or at least finger impressions or even hand impressions on your car. So whatever they touch, that dirt comes off and onto them, and it stay in the clear part, or the non-dirty spot is now where their hands used to be, and it gives you a nice impression. On my vehicle, this is my Honda Element. There is two sides of this. I'm going to get to the next picture and you'll see it. So this section right here on the car, on the reverse side over here, that section actually showed me a couple handprints that were pretty darn impressive. When I photographed this, I timed it just right for the fire to kind of pop, and this is what it looks like when the fire pops and you see all these little lines happening. That's all the little pieces of bark that just exploded in your little fire pit that you got going on. And when I opened up the aperture, a lot of things, you get to see the stars, up in the sky and everything. And the moon is slowly creeping. There's a line in the background here. That's a plane of some sort that's going by, and that's why it's all choppy looking. That straight line, that is from an airplane flying by, and that's probably the plane right there. But it's all choppy, and that's usually from the lights that are flashing. I'm trying to film the Milky Way. I'm trying to get the camera set up right. This spot right here is a galaxy. Let's see if I zoom this in a little bit. This is a little galaxy. I can't quite read it with my camera, but that's what that is. This is a galaxy that I could see while we were camping. And I thought that was interesting to actually got that on the camera. For me, Bigfooting is just Bigfooting, but it's fun to find other things that might be up in the sky as well. This is the Milky Way. This is a plane going over just as I was taking that shot, which I was not exactly happy for. I usually wait for planes to fly over before I try to take a photograph. Different setting. Okay, so after a few hours, the sky starts to lighten up a little bit. Now, it's not the sun coming up. The moon is beginning to creep up in the sky. And that kind of yields some interesting oddities in the pictures that you're about to see. So this is the moon right here. I don't remember what planet this is that's over here. It could be Mars. It could be, it's not Mars. It's not red. So it could be Saturn. It could be Jupiter. It's one of the other big planets. Everything in here, for the most part, you can explain. There's reasons behind it. All these little dots in here you can explain, because what you're seeing is the lighter sky pushing through, the trees and such here. And basically all of this is true. Now these little dots right here are kind of odd, and this light right here is really odd. And when I kind of look at it up close, these lights all kind of show like the sky, but this one not so much. This one has a little bit more crazier feel to it, and it's got a little bit of red in it, and that seems odd. And that's an odd thing right there. It doesn't make sense, and that oddity kind of shows itself in the next photograph. So again, here's the moon, there's a star, there's this thing, right? Well, the closer I start to zoom in on it, it kind of yields something interesting. This is a pair of eyeballs. looking at us from a distance. And I didn't notice that when I first was going through these pictures years ago. I never noticed this. But these are two sets of eyes. You can see the notch in between. That's two different sets of eyes looking at us. Now, could that be an owl? Sure. It could be just about anything. But it shouldn't be an owl, because I should not be able to see an owl's eyeballs that far away. I wasn't using a flash when I photographed this. Everything was off. Now, Sasquatch's eyes, they're self-illuminating, meaning they don't need to have a flashlight hit them for you to see their eyeballs. You can just see their eyeballs in the dark. It is crazy. I have video of an area not too far from where this was filmed where I actually have eyeballs. The Sasquatches are kind of roaming around us at the time. And I got video footage of Mike and Trenton. You can hear Mike and Trenton talking and me talking, and Trent ends up sitting on my foot, which hurt like something severely horrible, with his camping chair. But this thing here, these are eyes. And I will bet this is a Sasquatch looking at us from a distance, because this distance is ways away, really far away. Now, he may not even be looking at us. It could be that he or she is looking somewhere at something else, and I just caught that on camera by accident. Filming at night is fun. Filming during the daytime is equally fun. That image now is like a solid white or a palish blue-white. This is usually the color what you see when they're coming through the woods. That color is all the time when you see them in the woods. I've never really seen red eyes before when I'm camping. When they start showing up, it's always a pale bluish white, and the forest will glow, and it's always at the floor. It's like, like almost 6-7 feet, maybe 8 feet off the ground. You'll see this glow happen, and then all of a sudden you'll see the eyes. And man, it's the coolest thing you'll ever see. It is pretty darn interesting. So this is a tree. The very next morning I got up and I started roaming around and taking photographs. This tree trunk, it just was odd to me, and I ended up taking this picture. But somebody put a log in between a tree, and the tree grew around it. And then someone else came along and cut that log. I thought that was pretty darn funny. This side of the log is all jagged. This side of the log, of course, is not so much. That's what it looks like when trees grow around things. This is just a broken tree that was laid down amongst other trees. But then I find it interesting that there's another tree that kind of was brought up close to that. And I've seen that before in Bigfoot areas that we go into, where I find tree butted up against another tree. And sometimes it just forms a long line until, you walk it, and you walk almost 100 yards trying to figure out, why would anybody do this? And people just don't do that. It's not a normal thing. A standard tree break. A lot of tree breaks, you'll see the break here, and the tree will be hanging off. But this is a fun break, because part of the bark of the tree is actually still bending with the rest of it. The equal sign. So the equal sign, if you wander off this way, you'll eventually find a path or a road or something. Game trail. If you wander the opposite direction, same thing. The X at the end of this is bizarre, and I'm wondering if the X at the end of this actually means there's food on the other end. And I know people are thinking, no, X's mean keep out, and that's not true. I don't 100% believe that. But I do believe, and I know for a fact, that X's usually mean food or some type of resource that they can utilize. The log that's off to the side here that butts up against that, I don't really know what that means. I'm not exactly sure about that one yet. I would should have hiked along that and to find out where that was. But at the time, I was finding these equal signs just about everywhere. And again, this tree, like this, looks like it's one continuous piece. Yeah, that log is complete. This log is not. This log is complete this way, but something brought in another log and set it up next to this, like to make it complete. This is a strange tree. So this is a normal big tree. Now, normally when I would find a tree, I don't usually find the debris field underneath it. And this, to me, makes me feel like something climbed the tree and started knocking off all the branches. But it left all these big ones behind, and those would be probably handholds. You've got a branch that's here, and that's probably normal. But when I took the next shot, you see that here's that leaner. There's a broken branch over here, but way up on top is an oddity. So here you have a broken part of that tree, which actually came off right here, and it should have fallen all the way down, but the way it was placed, this tree, or this branch right here, is shoved up against the tree in a notch. And the notch is really kind of hard to spot, but there's a little notch in there and it was shoved in. And this part of the branch is sticking off of that. So it was shoved in a notch into a notch to keep it in place. If it would have broken off the right way, it would have gone down the other way and it would have fallen opposite. I don't see wind actually doing that. And the other oddity about this tree are these scratch marks that are up here in a circle. Squirrels don't typically do that. There's no reason for that to happen. I don't see a bear doing that either. That seems just way out of place. And if a person is climbing up and down this tree, there's not a whole lot of places for them to grab hold. And I don't know too many people that would climb a tree that's dead that could break at any moment in time. And yet this tree is just that. It's dead. It's completely dead. That's the other branch that's hanging down. And that's being held in place by notches and stuff again. And sometimes in Bigfoot areas, I will find trees, pine trees, where one side of the tree will have maybe a foot or two, and it's like a straight on up and down, and it's all busted all the way down. And there's no branches on the other side of that tree. It's just on one side of that tree. Like they use it to quickly go up, take a look, see what's around, and then they get right back off that tree as fast as possible. And, tell whoever they're going to tell that there's human activity coming. Or maybe they're looking for food. It's another picture of that broken branch. This is a leaner that's all been mixed up with other branches from other trees, and it's like almost like they had tied it off to something interesting. I was heading back up to the campsite before I came across Mike. This is a tree break. Now the tree break actually was broken up here. This is about, I want to say, close to 8 to 10 feet off the ground. That break comes down and it was broken again here and it was broken again here. This tree break should have just gone straight down this way, but instead it was forced and it was snapped there. So like you can see I'll zoom in up there. So it's just held on barely. That's the first break. Oop. And then it's broken here again, like something put weight on it and it snapped it that way. And then you can look down at the ground and it's broken here. There's no reason for that break to happen. And there's no reason for that break to happen. And yet, there it is. It doesn't make sense. In the Sasquatch world, tree breaks don't ever really make 100% sense. It's just something strange. Another leaning up against a dead tree. These are strange oddities. Like this log here, this old dead log is butted up against another old dead log. I have seen them where there's a straight line, and the line, it seems like a barrier from one spot to another. I was up in there was a campground in between Mount Albert and Mount Massive. And on Mount Massive side, there's this. I found structure after structure after structure, and it was the same structure, same pattern, same design, laid out every like 25 yards. There was another one. 25 yards later, there's another one. And I came to this spot. I was walking it, and I was looking at it, and taking pictures of stuff, and I get to this series of logs, and the logs go from a stream bed. I could see my campsite across the stream, and all the way up was a series of logs, and the logs were like right butted up against each other, making this complete line. So I walked up to it, and I decided to step over it, and right when I did that, I heard "Urgh!" And I took my foot off right away, and I thought I had a bear, and I looked around for it, didn't see it. But the minute I took my foot off away from that log and I put it back down, he quit growling. Whatever this was, quit growling. So I started looking into the trees to see what it was. Didn't see it. I looked up around me except for the tree that I was standing next to. So I decided, okay, I'm going to put my foot back over that log. And I did it, and I heard, "Urgh!" Pulled my foot away from it and went, "Urgh!" And it quit. So I kept on going back and forth to see if that growling would keep doing it, and it did. It kept growling at me. So it was really kind of funny to hear, "Urgh! Urgh! Urgh!" And I was just moving my foot forwards and backwards like I was going to step. I said, all right, look, dude, I'm going to leave you alone. So I turned and I followed that log, that series of logs, all the way up until I got to the Colorado Trail. That was absolutely an absurd story. But there was a lot of things on that weekend also that I'll talk about later on, in these video series. There's a faint foot impression here. It's really hard to read, but I think I get another shot of this. Okay, so here you can see toes. There's like imprints of toes inside the ground here. And this ground is really hard packed. So making a foot impression of anything, even if it's your shoe print, is really hard. You have to literally jump up and down to make an impression. And whatever this was, made it just enough of an impression to where you can see imprints. You can see the toe imprints in this, in between the toes. And that's pretty cool. I don't think this was another form of animal. I first thought this was a boot print, but I can't even break this ground here, all this gravel. I can't break through it. So anybody walking around barefoot did not make sense. Or if this was a mud or a boot print, and let's say it was raining, it still didn't make a whole lot of sense, because I can walk up and down this in rain and never make that type of impression. That's my boot against this size of this thing. And that's a pretty big foot size. There's another foot impression here. There's one here. And I think there was other ones that led on, like it was coming from it, this one, and then there was another one off of that. I have found foot impressions that I know I have photographed before in roughly the same area as this. The guy that was there before us, he was shooting these things. These are clay pigeons. They use that when they're practicing shooting ducks or fowl when you're out, hunting for birds and stuff. We found thousands of those things broken everywhere. This is the first impression. Now, when I came back to the car, this is one of the impressions that I had found on my car. I don't know what the hell this thing is. When I look at it, it is the weirdest thing. It looks like a thumb imprint, from a giant chicken. I have never seen that. This would be almost like a nail imprint. That's what it looks like. This looks like one part of the finger. This is another part of the finger. This is something else. And then you get this thing. And this is not my handprint. I didn't touch my car on purpose. And this is like a thumb or maybe part of the palm. And these are finger pulls. All these are finger pulls. Here you can see oh yeah, it's the part of the palm. So here's the hand, and then you got these fingers that are on my car. This doesn't make sense, and this clearly doesn't make any sense. Makes none whatsoever. And these things were huge compared to my fingerprint, and they didn't even touch Mike's truck. The reason why they touched this area of my car is because of what's behind it. So there's this material that I put in my windows to block out people from looking into my car, and Sasquatch, for whatever reason, likes to touch that stuff. They think they can touch it, but they can't really touch it. But that's a pretty big handprint. And unfortunately, we're going to end it at that because I'm at 22 minutes. So the next video will come out on Sunday, and I'll start back from where I'm leaving off with this. My name is Patrick. This is Sasquatch in the Wild. And I hope you're enjoying the journey, and I'll talk to you soon.